Despite sounding like a really bad fighting type Pokemon, Morchok is no pushover. This powerful elemental seeks to bring an end to all life on Azeroth, and it's up to you to catch them all, defeat him. Don't worry, if we're lucky, we'll get a pet store version of him for use in the new Pet Battle Arena. Morchok is a two-phase fight that focuses on some basic execution. He is the first boss of Dragon Soul and shouldn't be too difficult to take down. As of this video, Morchok had around 74 million HP, but expect that number to go up significantly before the fight is live. This boss spawns no ads. You'll want to bring 2 tanks, 5 to 6 healers, and a balanced DPS makeup. We'll remind you that this video and guide were made during the PTR, and if the fight changes significantly when it goes live, we will create a new guide to reflect this. Thank you. Morchok's primary spell throughout the fight is Stomp. He will violently stomp on the ground, dealing high physical damage to all players within 25 yards. Though the damage is split between all players that it hits, the 2 closest players will receive double damage. Throughout the fight, he will also use Crush Armor on his primary target. This is a high damage melee attack that reduces the target's armor by a small amount for a short duration. This effect stacks. Taking a page out of Belrock's book, Morchok will spawn crystals throughout the encounter. These crystals will explode after around 12 seconds, dealing high damage to the 7 closest players as well as knocking them back. The damage these players take increases the further they are from the crystal. When the boss reaches 20% health, he will become furious and increases attack speed and damage. After stomping and spawning crystals for a short period, Morchok will go into a brief phase 2. Morchok pulls all players to him with his spell, The Earth Consumes You. Very shortly after this, he will spawn multiple spikes from the ground with Earth's Vengeance. This is followed by an eruption of black blood which fills the area around Morchok. Standing in the black blood of the earth will deal stacking nature damage. Positioning for the fight is quite simple. Players should stack in one group slightly behind Morchok at max melee range. This does a few helpful things. It allows stomp damage to split between all players and significantly eases healing. It also makes it easy for both tanks to be the closest targets, causing them to take the double damage from his stomp. Tanks will want to repeatedly taunt off of each other before Crush Armor stacks too high to keep from being one-shot by his melee attacks. Designate 7 ranged players to take the crystals as they spawn. These players have the task of running to each crystal that spawns and eating the explosion damage from it. The crystal automatically focuses the 7 closest players, so they will need to run to each one. Additionally, it deals less damage to targets that are closer, so each of these players will need to stand as close to the crystal as possible before it explodes. Players focused by the crystal will receive a beam between themselves and the crystal. This beam changes color depending on distance and signifies how much damage will be taken. Far away players will have a red beam, while mid-distance players will have a yellow beam. Players very close to the crystal will have a blue beam. Ideally, all players will have a blue beam when the crystal explodes. After the crystal has exploded, the 7 assigned players will make their way to the next crystal and repeat this process. If the rest of the raid remains stacked in their original spot, the crystal group should remain in range of heals constantly. But if this becomes an issue, don't hesitate to place a healer or 2 in the crystal group. This phase should not be difficult. When Morchok pulls the raid to him for the start of phase 2, pay attention to where the rock spikes form and choose a direction to run. Players will be momentarily stunned, but once able to move, they will need to quickly hide behind one of the many rock walls. Hiding behind the rock walls will block players from the black blood of the earth. Simply stand behind the wall until this dissipates and prepare to repeat phase 1 again. If positioned just so, it is possible to DPS the boss while shielded from the black blood of the earth, but do not risk death to accomplish this. Once it is safe, Morchok will become active again and the tank will need to pick him back up. Regroup for phase 1 positioning and repeat the fight as normal. We like to save heroism and major cooldowns for 20% when the boss becomes furious, but using it at the start of the fight can also be optimal. As the first boss, Morchok should not give your raid too much trouble. Make sure the 7 players handling crystals are competent and understand their roles. If players are drowning in black blood of the earth, it may be helpful to mark a primary player for them to follow. This can also increase overall raid DPS if all players run to the same optimal position. If you enjoyed this guide or found it helpful, bookmark us at learntoraid.com, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitch TV and Twitter. As always, we hope that this guide was helpful, and we'll see you at the next boss.
I wasn't feeling so good. I just didn't feel like playing anymore. So I went home, and I got all comfy and cozy and all scrunched up in front of my phonograph. And I sat there and I closed my eyes and listened to all the sweet music.